Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is kind of our inaugural run as a hemp program for doing a webinar. We don't have a ton of experience, so I appreciate your patience with us. I'm going to go ahead and just wait another couple of minutes. We had about 400 folks who were registered. I realize that that may or may not mean that they actually show up today, but I want to give them a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, again, thank you to today's webinar this afternoon. My name is Sunny Summers. I am the Department of Ag's Cannabis Policy Coordinator. Some of you may have seen me in the past. We wanted to give everybody an update on where we are with the hemp program, both from the perspective of the USDA interim final rules, as well as developing an inspection and monitoring program. And given the state of the world, electronic virtual webinars, here we come. So bear with us. It is our first webinar, and if this goes well, we anticipate doing a number of other webinars, including one on hemp seed and what's required for that, as well as hemp and pesticides, and maybe hemp and food safety. So let's get started. I'd like to start by giving you an overview. That way, if you're like, no, this is not what I want to watch, or you need to pop out, you'll know when you can. So we're going to talk about, again, a general overview and update on the program. We learned some lessons in 2019, and we'd like to share those with you. We are developing an inspection and monitoring program. We're going to be starting with site visits and record inspections, and so we want to share with you what to expect during that. And then what are some resources that are available to you from ODA? So let's talk about what hemp is in Oregon currently. You must be registered as a grower with the Oregon Department of Agriculture if you have more than 4 plants. That includes paying a registration fee for the grower and then one for each location. You may have multiple grow sites within that location, various fields. You need to tell us all of the information about those fields. So we need to know anywhere that you're going to be growing plants, both greenhouse and outdoor. We have no restrictions in Oregon on how you plant the material. You can start it from seed, you can have mother plants and take clones off of that. You can have tissue culture. Again, no requirements on that, no minimum or maximum, other than Oregon state law does allow for personal cannabis plants. So that could be hemp or marijuana. For ODA's purposes, cannabis is kind of that umbrella term. The other requirement to be a grower and grow legal hemp in Oregon is that you have that crop tested for total THC no more than 28 days prior to harvest. We work with private labs in Oregon since 2018. The same labs that do the marijuana testing can come out and do your pre-harvest testing for you. They're generally going to be more economical and more timely than ODA's lab, but you do still have that choice if you would like to use ODA's lab. Once you receive your test results and they show that your crop is at or below 0.3% THC, you can harvest and move that crop on. I always like to point out to people that growers grow hemp. They do not process hemp into a final product. So if you are wanting to make smokable flower or pre-rolls, you would need to have the next registration type in addition to your grower registration. The next registration type is a handler registration, and that is for those businesses that are taking the raw hemp in and turning it into something else. That's the most simple explanation. So again, that's going to be anybody who is doing the trimming into usable flower. The smokable market is now a viable market. At least we saw a lot of growth in that area in 2019. both in Oregon and around the country. Handlers also take that raw material and run an extraction to create a CBD oil. Currently in Oregon, we are looking at, as far as we are aware, 100% production for either smokable flower as a way to consume CBD, one of the cannabinoids in the plant material, or biomass for extraction for essential oils, be it CBD or CBG, which we're starting to see this year as well. If we were to have somebody growing for seed, they would also need that. And there's testing that goes along here as well. So a handler, if they're making usable flower, it's going to go smokable, is going to need to have it tested the same as what is required for usable marijuana. So the 2017 legislature put statutes in place that said any hemp that's going to be used for human consumption, and they defined human consumption as inhalation, applications to skin or hair, or ingestion, must follow the same testing requirements as marijuana. So ODA's rules refer to the Oregon Health Authority rules that set out what are those testing requirements. So ODA is still the agency in charge of regulating that testing, but we have to mirror the testing requirements on the marijuana side. The only thing that is exempt is seed. So hemp seed, hemp hearts, hemp milk, those kind of products, those do not fall under that same testing requirement. So going back to smokable, we're looking at testing for potency. And again, it has to be at or below 0.3% total THC. And those rules have been in place since 2018. Water activity, moisture content, that is used to determine, are there the growth conditions available for fungal or bacterial growth? So Oregon currently does not require specific tests for salmonella or other bacteria. They're looking at that water activity and moisture content. And then any pesticide residue. So there are 59 pesticide active ingredients that the state requires all cannabis, again, hemp or marijuana, to be tested for. If it's an oil, it needs to be tested for those pesticides and any residual solvents if solvents were used. The pink bubbles that you see are secondary processors or retail, and they do not need to be registered under Oregon's hemp program. However, the final product must be tested and shown to be at or below 0.3 total THC before it's sold in a general retail market. We're not going to go into it here today, but there are ways to move hemp products into the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, or OLCC's regulated adult use marijuana market. And if you have questions about that, OLCC has a lot of information on their website. So that's kind of a seed to sale diagram of hemp within Oregon. We started registering growers and handlers back in 2015, and we started with 13 very hardy souls and about 105 registered acres. Last year was amazing. We ended with just over 1,900 growers and right around 64,000 acres. That bottom line is where we are currently as of today. So you see that our number of registrants and number of acres are around 85 to 88% of where we were at this time last year. We do have more handlers in Oregon than we did in July of 2019. We see every year the numbers go up. I think last year was quite the learning experience for a number of folks. And so we are seeing people maybe pull back on the number of acres that they're registering, or in order to sell hemp that you grew last year, you still must be registered this year with the department as a grower. So we may have the same number of growers, but they may not be growing this year. So there's a lot of factors that go into these numbers, but it at least gives you an idea of where we are. So where are people actually growing? You know, we've got the registration numbers, but where are they growing? So on this map, you see they're up and down the I-5 corridor. They are in Jefferson and Deschutes County. We have folks up on the Columbia Plateau, folks over in the Ontario, Eastern Oregon area. It's kind of all over the state, but definitely some clustered areas. And I would note that ODA does not have a cutoff for registrations. The registrations are good for a calendar year. And so these numbers will continue to evolve through November. That's basically when we make the cutoff, because we're not going to register you for December typically, when you're going to have to turn around and register again in January. But at least this gives you a snapshot of where we are here in July of 2020. Moving on to USDA rules and estate plan. If you are not familiar with the Oregon Hemp Program or the federal hemp laws, quick refresher, 2014 Farm Bill said that states could create pilot programs either through the land grant university or State Department of Ag. And so that is what Oregon is currently operating under, is the 2014 Farm Bill pilot program. In December of 2018, the 18 Farm Bill actually created a federal program that is housed at the US Department of Agriculture. And it directed the USDA to put rules into place on how states could administer plans within their state under the purview of the USDA. So states had a year to file a state plan showing how they're going to meet the USDA rules after the USDA put their rules out. Those interim final rules came out on October 31st of 2019. So Oregon opted to continue operating under the 2014 Farm Bill, which was allowed within the 18 Farm Bill. And we are now moving forward to bring our rules into compliance with what the USDA is requiring. The biggest thing that Oregon didn't do that we've had to change or will have to change is Oregon has not traditionally required a background check for any growers. The 18 Farm Bill requires that a background check be done and that the applicants not have a felony associated with a controlled substance within the last 10 years. So that is a big change that we are going to have to put into our rules. The other piece that is concerning for a number of folks in the industry that we will have to meet is their pre-harvest testing requirements are more stringent. They take a smaller amount of the plant, and they're currently requiring that all tests be done no more than 15 days prior to harvest. And so if you remember, I said currently in Oregon, we're looking at 28 days. I've heard from the USDA that they will be opening up a public comment period again later this year. So I highly encourage any member of the industry who has concerns about anything within the federal rules to make sure that they are sharing those concerns with the USDA and letting them know how that will impact your farm. So in order to get Oregon's rules in line with what the federal requirements are, we have to make those rule changes. So the first step is what we call a Rules Advisory Committee, or a RAC. They will be meeting next week. Those are invited members of the industry to give feedback to ODA on draft rules. We will have those posted on our website later this week. So if you want to take a look at them, you're always welcome to give us feedback, but only RAC members will be able to participate during that meeting. Once we have that feedback, we'll make any final changes to that draft, and then we will file them with the Secretary of State. That will open up a public comment period, and so you will have an opportunity to make comments to the department. We do have to submit a state plan to USDA in the middle of August. They have 60 days to review that plan. And so what our intent is to file our state plan with those rules that we'll have filed with the Secretary of State. Providing all of that moves through, those rules will become permanent. The Oregon rules will become permanent in October. Our intent is to have them become active January 1st when the new registration year starts. So that leaves us with a little bit of a gap for November and December. And the information I've received from USDA is anybody harvesting in November and December must meet their requirements. If we have a state plan approved, I can't make any guarantees. You know, there's talk about extending the time that states can operate under the 2014 Farm Bill longer. There's talks about USDA changing those interim rules. We won't know until it's right at that time. So my recommendation to everybody in the industry who is growing is if you can at all have your crop harvested prior to October 31st, you're not going to run into any issues around that. If it's after that, we just don't have any information at this point. And I know some folks were still harvesting in November of last year. And, you know, when you have a federal program coming online and you have state programs that have already been up and running, there is going to be some bumpiness in the road on combining those two programs and making them work. And so this is what we're going to experience this fall. We're trying to make it as smooth a transition as possible. But again, I just want to let everybody know your best bet is going to be to harvest prior to October 31st. Okay, lessons learned in 2019. We saw so many people who were enthusiastic about hemp get involved, and that is a wonderful thing. I've been quoted as calling this the gateway crop, because I think we're going to get a lot of folks involved in agriculture who maybe weren't involved before. And, you know, one of ODA's core values is that ag is cool. And we want to encourage people to be part of agriculture, but we want to make sure that people are doing things correctly. And so there's been a lot of confusion around total THC and Delta-9 THC and pre-harvest testing and post-harvest testing. Just to give you a brief chemistry primer, THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is the intoxicating cannabinoid, the primary intoxicating cannabinoid in cannabis. Cannabis, again, being hemp and marijuana, it is all the same plant. It's legally separated based on this THC concentration. And so THC naturally occurs in the plant as it's growing in a field as Delta-9 THC and THCA. When you heat that plant material, the THCA is converted to Delta-9, and again, Delta-9 is the intoxicating form. So states that measure for Delta-9 post-decarboxylation, that's that heating and converting of THCA to Delta-9, call that value a total THC. There's some argument about whether it's actually total. This is a very hot topic in the industry, but the moral of the story is Oregon, up until January of this year, was a Delta-9 only state. So we only looked at the Delta-9 as it was naturally in the plant material and did not include the THCA potential to convert to Delta-9 THC. The 2018 Farm Bill requires that states use the total THC. Basically, it says that states must measure the Delta-9 post-decarboxylation or similarly reliable method. And the USDA interim final rules have that requirement for total THC. So we moved to a total THC for pre-harvest tests January of this year. I get a lot of questions from people. I even had an email earlier today. Well, so that crop last year, is it still legal this year? Yes. If it was legal last year to harvest that crop, it is still legal hemp this year. But that takes us into, what are your requirements for potency for post-harvest testing? So when I talked about kind of the seed to sale tracking of this plant in the hemp program, I talked about total THC and marijuana testing. And the fact that in 2017, the state legislature required us to mirror the marijuana testing requirements, which are for total THC. So since 2018, the state has required that any post-harvest testing looking at potency be for that total THC. So I hear a lot of people say, well, but so-and-so has been selling smokable hemp and I know it's above 0.3 total. Just because so-and-so has been doing that doesn't mean it's legal. And if you have questions about this, please come to the department, come talk to our staff. We are happy to walk you through this. It's chemistry. Most of us hated chemistry. And while you may not be happy with it, and maybe there will be changes in the future that will take place at the federal level, it is what we currently have, and we must meet those federal requirements in order to have a legal, viable hemp industry in Oregon. So that's kind of the total Delta 9 pre-harvest, post-harvest situation. And I'm hoping moving forward, now that both pre-harvest and post-harvest are total THC, there will be less confusion associated with that. Some of you may have received emails from our testing specialist. This year we went back and said, okay, we have these fields registered and we only have 4 test results. So we've got 5 fields registered, 4 test results. What happened to that 5th field? And so you may have received an email from us asking what happened. What we're finding is not all of the labs provided ODA with the test results. That is a requirement of the grower to make sure that they provided us not only with the test results, but with all of the required documentation, both your request for testing, the paperwork that the lab fills out when they are on site pulling the samples, and then those final results. I think we had a lot of people who combined grow sites into harvest lots in violation of the testing requirements. So a single contiguous field can be 1 harvest lot, but if you have 2 fields and they are not contiguous, it is a violation of the rules to combine those into 1 harvest lot. We had folks who maybe removed a grow site or decided not to grow. Just send us an email and let us know that, so that we don't contact you next year and say, hey, where's your pre-harvest? Or maybe it was a greenhouse that you used to start the plant material. We need to know that, so if law enforcement were to ever contact us or we were to ever come out, we would know, okay, yeah, he's got a greenhouse and they're starting plants in it. But if you end up not growing to maturity, just again, send us an email and let us know. And if you need to add grow sites, there's requirements for that as well. So again, our hemp specialists and our testing specialists can help you work through that. But if we don't know, it starts to look like maybe you're not following the rules and doing something wonky. And then the final one that we really saw was, I think we had a number of folks who were growing for seed and did not realize that they still have to have that pre-harvest testing done. So those are the 2 things that make you a legal hemp grower in Oregon, is registering with the Department of Ag and having that pre-harvest test done. If you don't do those 2 things, you're not meeting the requirements. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Tim Butler, our new program manager. And Tim, if you want to turn your audio and webcam on.
There I am. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Great.
And there's Tim.
Good deal. Thank you, Sunny. We appreciate it. Good overview. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you joining us today. Again, my name is Tim Butler, and I'm the interim manager for the ODA Hemp program. And I'm also continuing on as the managing the invasive noxious weed control program and the native plant conservation program. So I am wearing several hats there. Just a little background on myself. Actually, yesterday I had my 42-year service date anniversary. So I've been with the department for a long time. I started out in the weed program and worked in different facets of the noxious weed program, and have been the manager of the noxious weed program for the last 23 years. So the hemp, getting involved with hemp is a new thing for me, and so there's a lot to learn. Very complex program, I'm finding. So lots going on. I wanted to take the opportunity to, Gary McInich, which has been the hemp program manager for the last 2 years or so, officially retired the end of June. But Gary will continue on through October as the co-manager of the hemp program. And I want to thank Gary for all the good work that he has done and the core hemp staff in moving the hemp program forward as the industry has developed. And it, obviously, as Sunny said, with the table that she had there of the increased acres and growers, it is a growing industry, and so it is. There's a lot going on there, and there's been lots of changes as we've gone through this. These are challenging times for all of us, particularly with COVID-19, and that has affected us as well, and has a direct effect on the noxious weed program, and with reductions in funding. So in the interim, the noxious weed program staff are working in the hemp program to develop and implement a hemp inspection and monitoring program. And so that is a big part of our staff will be involved with that. The goal is to recruit permanent positions in the hemp program as soon as noxious weed funding returns, and try to get permanent staff into those positions. So that's the goal. Our weed program staff will bring great expertise to team up with the existing hemp program staff to develop some new and exciting aspects to the overall program. That will include the ability, we hope, for online registrations, and that's something that we've already started to work through, and overall streamlining the processes for, with the goal of increased customer service. That's what we're striving for. We realize as our customers come first, and we're trying to do the best we can with a very complex program and a lot of information to work through. So that's certainly a primary goal from certainly my perspective and staff perspective. As our vision for the hemp inspection and monitoring program is to provide hemp inspections and outreach to growers and handlers for compliance with federal and state laws to ensure the viability of the Oregon hemp industry. And so that's why we're here to provide that framework, and to the inspections, which is a new part of the overall hemp program, is to help keep a level playing field and work with the industry to help educate and have a better understanding of what the rules and the laws are concerning hemp. So with that, I'm going to want to kind of go through quickly and introduce some of the staff so you know who is in the program. And I'll just start out. I've already introduced myself, so we'll move to Sunny, and you've met Sunny already. Sunny Summers is the Cannabis Policy Coordinator, and there she is again. Tristan
Outstanding
Berg.
in a hemp field.
There you go, outstanding in your field. And Tristan Berg is the Hemp Information Project Coordinator. She comes from the weed program and is continuing work in the noxious weed program as our noxious weed grant coordinator as well. So she's wearing two hats. Beth Myers-Shanai also comes from the noxious weed program and is going to be the interim lead hemp specialist in the program. And Emily Rogue is the hemp testing specialist, and Emily is doing a good job in the program. Josh Olson works in the Salem office and as a hemp registration specialist. And then Arden Quinn is also I don't know, I can't see the bottom of the slide there, but he's another one of our registration specialists that is working in the program. And one of the things to note with, well, obviously the weed staff are brand new to this, and I might clarify too, the noxious weed staff that are working in the hemp program also have other duties that they're continuing to work on noxious weed projects that we have agreements on federal lands, so BLM and Forest Service lands, and so they are doing that and also working on the hemp side as well. So there's lots going on with folks in that regard. I wanted to also mention that that as far as we have some temps that are working in the program as well currently, Luz and Susan and Shannon, that are working in the Salem office as well, helping to move through the process and helping all of you and replying to emails, etc. And we get, believe me, we get lots of emails, and just managing that is a full-time job for folks, and trying to provide good information back to all of you. As far as the field staff, and this is the noxious weed staff in various regions of the state, which will also be working as inspectors out there as we move forward this season. And Beth Myers-Shanai in Northwest Oregon, also Glenn Miller. There's Glenn in Northwest Oregon. He's out of the Eugene area. Carrie Perosco is down in Southwest Oregon and has been at the weed program for a number of years. Currently, we have Central Oregon vacant. Mike Crumrine, that has worked with us for a number of years, took another position with the U.S. Forest Service. So that position is currently vacant. We have Mark Porter that you see there up in Northeast Oregon, and Bonnie Rasmussen down in Southeast Oregon. And both Mark and Bonnie will be working, helping to cover the Central Oregon sites, fields that are being grown in Central Oregon of hemp, and also in their respective areas. So we will have to move some staff around to help in various areas, but that's kind of how they're distributed geographically. And so that's gives you an idea of who you may be meeting when folks call to come out and take a look at your operation. So so it is. I mean, I guess I would just kind of wrap up here by just saying to please keep in mind that again, that this is a program that it continues to evolve, and we will be doing our best to meet the needs of the industry as we and make adjustments as necessary as we move forward. And so we continue to learn. We've been going through a lot of different processes to evaluate where we're at and how we can improve. and we will continue to do that. And I think having input from the industry is important too, to hear what you all have to say on how we can improve. So again, thank you all for joining us today. I will turn it over to Beth Meyer-Shanai to give you more specific information on the inspection and monitoring program development. And we'll just kind of go from there, and I'll turn it over to Beth. Thank you.
Actually, I think I'll jump back in, Tim, for just a second, and then everybody gets to meet Beth in person.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. That was an excellent introduction, and I'm really excited to have this program grow and develop. As we talked about earlier, we have 5 years under our belts in this program, and we have to show that we're meeting enforcement requirements as part of our state plan with USDA. And the department really, with all of our enforcement programs, views it as, what can we do to educate the industries that we are working with first and get folks doing the right thing rather than come out with guns blazing and kind of beat you all over the head. And so this is going to be, as Tim said, a evolving and developing inspection and monitoring program. We're more interested in helping you meet the requirements than, look, we got you.
Right.
And Beth will talk about this more, but we want to show where the industry is excelling as well. This is important. We don't just want to show where folks are making mistakes. We want to show where you are excelling and setting that national standard. We certainly have to continue to follow up on complaints, unregistered growers, complaints about somebody not doing their pre-harvest testing. We have some people out there doing some naughty things and changing or falsifying test reports, and that's not fair to those of you that are meeting the rules, and it's not fair to the labs to have their information changed and falsified. So we're following up on that, and then it's primarily complaint driven, but if somebody is selling a hemp product in the general marketplace, which again is outside of the regulated marijuana program, and it's above the allowed THC levels, that's not acceptable either. That becomes, a public health concern, especially for children or people who might be subject to drug testing and be in jeopardy of losing their jobs through no fault of their own because they thought they were buying a product that had very low levels of THC. So we're going to continue to work on those pieces, but this inspection and monitoring program is going to primarily be education and outreach and evolve as we know that people in the industry know what is required of them. So with that,
very good.
We're going to start with these random site record keeping visits, both for growers and handlers. And that's what Beth will talk to you about in the next couple of slides. We're going to continue to work with law enforcement. Tim talked about the large amount of emails we receive. A number of those are from law enforcement verifying whether or not an address has a legal registration. And if you're growing hemp and you're trying to do things right, you want us to be able to say yes to the law enforcement. So again, another reason why you want to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. And then all over the state, but certainly in Southern Oregon, we've had a number of concerns about illegal use of water, people not having legal water rights or not using it at the right time of year. And that's really Oregon Water Resources Department. And so we've actually taken some of the hemp money to fund an assistant water master down in Southern Oregon to look into these complaints, and again, to do education and outreach with the industry to make sure that people know what is allowed and what isn't. And it goes back to I think some folks are brand new to agriculture and they may not know what those requirements are. Some may be trying to skirt the law. And again, that's not fair, and we don't need people using a valuable resource inappropriately in this state. So we're going to continue that work as well. So with that, let's turn it over to Beth, and she can talk to you more about what to expect during a visit.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Beth Meyer-Shanai. It's great to meet you all. I am with the Noxious Weed Program and now the Hemp Program, and I'm serving as the temporary hemp lead specialist, and also have been working hard to develop an inspection program and start developing the protocols for what our staff will use when we come out to see you. I wanted to give you a little overview of kind of what to expect, especially on these first visits, to find out what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about. I want to rest assured, just like Tim said, our overall vision here is to just make sure that we're getting outreach to you and also ensuring that compliance is happening so that this can be a viable industry in Oregon, because it's important to us both individually as you are successful as a grower, and as an industry, this is a successful endeavor for all. The first thing that you can expect when it's time for a site visit, and these are going to be, there will be a number of them that are just selected randomly unless it's a specific concern about compliance that's been brought up about a specific location. But for the random visits, we'll be calling or emailing to schedule the time. And even if it's a compliance related visit, it's likely going to have a scheduled time with you as well. Once a time has been arranged, then we'll come out and do a meet and greet on site, let you talk about your operation to us, and exchange some cards, etc. And rest assured that we are going to develop pretty strict protocols to prevent transmission of COVID-19 and any other plant health issues so that your staff and your crops stay safe. The inspector will print out a copy of your current registration or have it available on their tablet so that you guys can look at that together and go over what you have down on your registration as the parameters for your grow site or your processing facility. And then the inspector will go on a tour of either your greenhouses, fields, processing facility if you're a handler, and just check and see how the characteristics are currently compared to what you were registered for. And there may be issues like Sunny was mentioning where you didn't plan out all of the production areas that you had planned in your grow site, and this is our opportunity to kind of capture those little bits of information, purely information gathering at this time. And for them to see how your operation is going so that when you can have a discussion later, maybe can prompt some questions to bring up with your inspector. So you can go ahead and move on to the next slide, Sunny. Thank you. So once they've had a tour of your facility, then there will also be a record keeping review. The inspector may kind of glance through and see if there are any issues that are kind of popping up right away that they can talk to you about. But really, they're going to be collecting the records from you either by taking a photograph of paper records, if that's the way you've kept them, or if you have them electronically in a database or on a spreadsheet, then they will ask that you email those records along. Once the record review is done, then you guys can have a closing discussion about any concerns that immediately popped up. You can ask questions. The inspectors are going to have resources, hopefully, to point you for water use, pesticide use, grower help through OSU, all of those things. The inspectors will have some resources available to pass on to you. Maybe looking out at what your next steps are and making sure that you have the process in line for what you're going to do next so that we can head off any issues at the pass. So really our goals here are just to make sure that your future success this year and continuous years is ensured. Once the inspector is done with their site tour, they'll take their information back to a case reviewer. So the inspectors aren't going to make any decisions about potential concerns, but they will pass over things that they saw going well. So the case reviewer has all that information. They can look at it, and if there are any concerns, there'll be a follow-up letter where they can note those concerns so that we have it logged in that you were told about the concerns. And then also give you those kudos for what's going well, because we want to keep passing that, gathering that information and passing that on through these industry channels to make sure everybody knows that Oregon is the leader in this industry, and that we're really going to be setting the standard for what's going on in the state. So with that, I'll pass it off to Sunny to wrap things up. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Beth. So our expectation is that we're going to try and shoot for about 15% of registrations to get a visit this year. That may be overly optimistic. That may be a small amount. So we're, as we said earlier, really looking at this as an evolving process and program. Staff will start contacting growers or handlers possibly as soon as next week or the week after that, so that depending on what their other duties are in, as we call it, the other weed program, the noxious weed. So you may be getting a call as soon as the 15th, but I would anticipate it's going to be a few days after that at the earliest. The resources that are available, obviously that phone number gets you to our hemp staff here in Salem. You're always welcome to contact the field staff directly. You're welcome to contact myself directly. For general questions, you can send an email to hemp@ODA. That goes to a large number of us. If you're looking for contact information for other growers, ag hemp seed producers, handlers, we ask that you send those emails to the hemp records email address. That way we can track those because they are considered public record. But all of that information is available, and we download the list weekly. So again, remember, what you get today is going to be different than what you would get in September, but it is available. We also have an email listserv. Many of you probably are already on that. If you're not, or you have staff or other folks who might be interested, you go to that oda.fyi/subscribe. It'll ask for your email address. Hemp is one of the options. There may be other options here at ODA that you would be interested in as well. And then websites. So the oda.direct/hemp is our hemp website. It's going to have your registrations. It's going to have your testing requirement paperwork. It's going to have links to Oregon statute and rules. It links you to the USDA page, has some other resources like OSU's Global Hemp Innovation Center. So there's a number of documents on there that are going to be useful for you. If you're trying to figure out what pesticides can I legally use on hemp, that's going to be that third bullet, oda.direct/cannabis pesticides. And then if you're trying to figure out, I want to sell hemp seed to somebody else, what kind of additional licensing do I need through ODA's seed program? Or I want to buy hemp seed, and what can I do to protect myself as a consumer from somebody who might have, the baggie with the best seed ever in it? So there's resources on that page and the contact information for our seed regulatory program. So please make use of that as well. The oda.direct/cannabis has handouts for each of ODA's programs that interact with all things cannabis. So we have one for ag water quality, one for food safety, one's for weight and measures. So what kind of scales do you need? One for pesticides. So those may be useful for you if you haven't seen them as well. Today's webinar isn't really set up to answer questions. I see that some folks have put some questions in the question box. What I'd like to do is, for the more specific ones, I'd like to take those questions, and when we are able to post the video of today's webinar, I will be sending a link to that out to the listserv. And in that email, I'm going to answer the questions that are more specific in the question box. So with that, I really appreciate you joining us. I know I scheduled it for an hour and a half. I didn't know if we were going to run a little over, and I wanted you to be able to schedule that into your day. So again, I really appreciate everybody who was able to join us today. I appreciate those folks who will be watching this at a later date. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Tim, if you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share, happy to have you pop back on as well.
Don't really have anything other than just, again, just to reiterate what you said, is just thanks for everybody joining us, and we're going to have a busy season.
Yeah, it's going to be a good season though, but it's going to be bumpy before it gets smoother, folks. Just, you know, we all recognize the impact that COVID is having on everybody's lives, and that includes our staff as well. And we appreciate your patience and grace with us as we navigate this changing world. And like I said, look forward to future webinars from ODA's Hemp program as we move forward. And if you're interested in checking out the draft rules, those will be posted on the ODA Hemp website later this week. And with that, I'm going to close it out and tell everybody thank you one last time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.